What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. It's your girl, Shelly Nicole, with the Red Penny Podcast. Hope you guys had a great weekend. My week was relatively exciting. I went to the Chris Brown concert. Still on somewhat of a high from that. If you went, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you've seen it on at least Instagram or TikTok, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. The best concert that I have been to. I said that last year with his 11/11 tour. I'll say it again with Breezy Bowl. 1,000 out of 10. That man puts on a show. To me, he is our Michael Jackson of this era. Only 3 people I can think of can sell out stadiums. And he is one of them. So, shout out to Chris Brown. Shout out to the whole Breezy fan base. We are lit. We turned that place up. So that's how my week was. My weekend was kind of chilled. I didn't do much of anything. Let me not say that. I did do stuff. Rode on bikes Saturday, which was kind of dope. I am thinking about getting a motorcycle. Sorry, mom and dad. So it was kind of dope just to sit on it and just like to ride the motorcycle and really get a feel for it. So that happened. And then Sunday was a chill day. And then Monday, did my nails. So didn't do much of nothing. Just really making sure I don't spend any more excessive amount of money, because I spent a good amount this summer. Now it's time for me to chill. But today's episode, we're going to jump right into it. Not going to make this a long, dragged out intro. Is healing in the midst of triggers. Now, I asked this question on IG. What are some things that you are healing from that still triggers you to today? And when I tell you the things that people were saying, if you have not looked on the IG, if you don't follow me on IG, go and follow me now on IG. It is under the remedy_podcast_. Make sure you guys go follow that Instagram. But I did ask some people, and some of the answers were crazy. Someone said having to co-parent with my daughter's mom. Someone said when my friends try to correct me but I take it the wrong way. Being cheated on, not having a father around. Someone said childbirth. Someone also admitted that their entire past has been something that they are healing from. So it's really, and I came to this topic, honestly, was because I myself have and still continue to heal from things that trigger me. Some things that I'll never speak on, that I'll just keep between me and my therapist, and some things I'll just keep between me, my therapist, and God. But for the most part, there have been situations that I have gotten, or that I have been around, at least I should say, that have been a somewhat of a trigger. And as you're trying to heal from it, how hard it is not to find yourself getting right back into your old ways. Like when people, for instance, talk about you, or if like your first instinct whenever somebody would bump into you is to say something smart, and your now first instinct is to just wait and see what happens, instead of just reacting. That can definitely be something that triggers you, something that, I guess, like, if you get more intense into it, when the person said childbirth, I actually asked them in their DMs, like, what do you mean by childbirth? They said that their body, your body changes when you are pregnant, and she felt angry at her child for so long for making her body change the way that it did. She didn't gain massive weight, she said, but what had happened was that her skin color change, which I did hear is like a common thing with some women, that when they get pregnant, hormones and everything change, obviously. And one of the things that can happen is your skin color changes. And she said she looked terrible. She said her skin color changed. Some areas of her were like super, super, super dark. And then she said her nose got so huge. And she's like, I felt so ugly during my whole pregnancy. And, you know, she loved the fact that her husband was so attentive to her regardless, but she still felt hideous. So that was something that, as she looks at her child now, she gets triggered from looking at her kid. She loves her kid, but it's still a trigger, like, you did this to me. And then I guess like also to her husband, but she said to her child, it's like, she never verbally will say that, but she will say like it took, and it's continuing to take, because it's not completely gone, from her words, at least like how she used to look. That's something that she's learning to heal from and understand that it was just a part of childbirth, and it was a part of becoming a mom for her. It wasn't what, you know, social media jacks it up to be, or what other people in her life have gone through when it comes to having kids. So she is trying her hardest to like heal from things like that. Someone else said the co-parenting with their daughter's mother, how it was kind of hard for the first few years to actually co-parent with his baby mother, his ex-girlfriend, because she would use the child against him. And now, as he has conversations with her and as he speaks to her, it's like he doesn't know if he should say anything or if he could say how he really feels, because he's so traumatized of her weaponizing or using the child against him to say, well, now you're not going to see your kid. Where he said like now the mom has grown up and, you know, she's matured, and she's not really like that anymore, where she, you know, they can get into an argument or disagreement and he'll still be able to see his kid. So in time, life, you know, and maturity eventually knocked at her door, and she answered, thank God. But he still, to this day, if something doesn't sit right with him, he feels triggered, like, should I say something, should I not? And it gives him like this bad feeling of anxiety. So honestly, healing isn't always a straight path, right? So sometimes the very moments that trigger all of us become the doorway to deeper growth. And in this episode, I kind of want to like speak on how to keep moving forward when the old wounds resurface, because I feel like we all continue to have those moments of when life is gonna life, and sometimes God will always try to put something, or maybe not even God, sometimes the devil, sometimes the enemy will sit here and try to put something in your path to see if you're still going to go back to it, if you're going to be distracted, if it's going to throw you off course, if it's going to give you anxiety, if it's going to make you take steps back instead of pushing through it and moving past it. So sometimes old wounds will resurface, but you know, this is from recognizing your emotional cues to responding with grace instead of reactions, like very hard, very vocal, and very verbally abusive reactions. So we're basically going to talk about this episode of ways to navigate through these moments without losing sight of the process and the progress, because everything is a progress. Healing does not have a timestamp on it. Healing takes as long as it's supposed to take. Everyone's healing process is not the same. Everyone's maturity process is not the same. Everyone's level of getting over it is not the same as yours. And I think if everybody kind of understands that, they'll look at everyone in a different light, as far as, you know what, when it's time, you will be okay. When it's time, you will see exactly what it is I'm talking about. You'll grow and you'll look back at this like, what was I even thinking? So I'll share one of my triggers that actually I realized how much I grew from it this past week, honestly, if I'm being honest. I think I've mentioned to you that I had dated a guy for a little bit and thought it was going to go somewhere and it didn't, whatever. I'm happy now. I hope he's happy. Nonetheless, you see, growth. He's like, you like how I put that in there? That was a growth moment. Last year, and this is crazy how it all happened, because I was literally telling my friends, I was in the Sprinter with them as we were heading to the Chris Brown concert on Tuesday. I was literally telling them that, this time last year, around the same exact time, we were in the car going past or going on, I think it was it the Hutch? It wasn't the Hutch. What is that? The Cross Bronx. Was it the Cross Bronx? I believe it was the Cross Bronx. Hell, I don't know. I'm not good with names on highways. I just know how to get there and I know what exit to get off of. Regardless, last year in June, I was heading to the Chris Brown concert with my friend Amanda and her friend Jasmine, her best friend Jasmine. Hey guys. And I was in the back seat. Amanda was driving, and we had passed by the guy's house who I was talking to at the time. And now, mind you, me and him had stopped talking. He did me dirty, and I stopped talking to him. I cut off all ties with him. But I was perfectly fine. Like, as I got into the car, as, I was getting ready and the whole bit, I was fine. The moment that I went past his house on the highway, we didn't stop. We were just driving past. The exit that I normally would get off of if I ever went to his house, sometimes he would come to mine, but if I had ever went to go visit him, was the same exit as the exit to go see my best friend and my godkids. So I'm just, I'm in the back seat. I'm not paying any mind. We're listening to his music, whatever. And the moment I look up, we're slightly about to pass his exit, and I feel this enormous feeling of, I feel like it was guilt. I feel like it was sadness. I feel like it was a mix of like his emotions that I felt and then a mix of my emotions that I felt. Because I'm familiar now with this area. This area was an area of that I normally got off of to go see him, or like, not necessarily just to go see my godkids or my friend, but it was, at the time, this is where I would go to go see him. And it brought up a negative feeling because I was just like, what the hell? Like, why am I feeling like this? Like, out of nowhere, randomly. Like, my heart started to race. My hands started to sweat. And then the moment we went around that curve to go up onto, can't think of the other highway, but to go up onto the next highway, it all went away. And then even as the months went on, I still felt triggered whenever I had heard a song that reminded me of him, or heard a show that we would watch that reminded me of him. And then now fast forward, here we are in August of 2025, the same highway that we were on last year, we are on now. And I go past his house again and I look up, and just the thought of it like entered my mind. But the feeling of guilt, angry, his feelings that I definitely feel were his, that I can feel, because that's a whole nother topic, but I really deeply feel like I'm an empath. Like, I can feel when other people are feeling not so good, or just sad about something, or just when I know something is not okay. But again, another episode. But his feelings, and then also my feelings of anger, anxiety. Oh, I want to beat the crap out of you, but I don't want to get out the car. That feeling I didn't have that. And when I mentioned it to my friend, she was like, girl, F him, like, fuck him, like, please. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, yeah, definitely. And I felt fine. I moved on, and then boom, that was it. I moved on from it. I didn't continue feeling the feeling. I didn't continue talking about it. I moved on, enjoyed the rest of the time. It's just interesting to see how going past someone's house or just the smallest things can make you have a trigger and make you feel like, damn, I'm still not over this situation as much as I thought I was over it. And for a while, like, not even with this situation, but for a while I kept feeling like, am I broken? Like, do I have issues? Am I psychotic? Am I dumb? It's just like these are things that I kept feeling. And then after a while, especially within the last few years, like even though this happened only last year, but still within the last few years of me really doing some self deep diving and deep, I guess redirection and accountability and moving and like the whole nine, just doing work on myself, I realized like, no, I'm not broken. I'm just evolving. I'm just changing. I'm just letting go of what I normally would have held on to for years. Like, yourself, how you probably know the people that will sit here and say like, well, once you do me wrong, that's it. You can never come back, and that's the. It's like, do we really have to sit here and hold, like, you are allowing this person to hold on to a part of you that you are not willing to let go of? Just because you physically have let go of them, just because you no longer talk to them, the fact that you can act that way, you can say the things that you say, well, you can never talk to me ever again. I will never look at them. Like, when you're dead to me, you're dead to me. And when like, I understand, like, you may no longer want to speak to the person. I understand you may never want to, hear from them or whatever. But when you have such an aggressive feeling towards them and they're no longer a part of your life, you're still holding on to the pain and the irritation and the anger and the whatever the situation was that caused you guys to no longer speak. Or, and again, this doesn't have to be a relationship thing. It can be friends, it could be family, it could be just within yourself, it could be something else that you did. When you continue to hold on to the situation, even though you're telling yourself, no, I'm letting it go, you're really not letting it go. You're still holding on to it, and you're not allowing yourself to evolve. So you're not broken, you're just not giving the space and the time for whatever caused you to be so angry, whatever caused you so much hurt and pain, to really fester inside of you. See that it was an issue, bring it to light, and then move on and let it go. Okay, so first let's just figure out what are triggers, right? So triggers are, in the simplest terms I can use for the psychological term, but the simplest term of it, I can just basically say that it's your body's alarm system reminding you of past pain. That's basically what the trigger is. So let's say you and a friend are having a falling out, and this fallout is, I'm thinking about this as I'm going, right? you and your friend are having a falling out, but your fallouts in the past with your other friends from back in the day always turned out ugly. So the way you avoid going through the pain of what is about to come, you simply just say to them, okay, well, fuck it, I don't want to be your friend anymore. And now as your adult friends, as people who you are now coming in contact with, or even if it's the same friends that you've had for so long, the response back then would have been that, and that would have been okay. But now it's like your defense mechanism to sit here and keep yourself from feeling hurt because somebody's leaving you again, or somebody doesn't no longer want to be your friend, or somebody is trying to tell you about yourself but you're not trying to hear it, so you're just saying, well, fuck it, I don't want to be your friend anymore. That way you can avoid the whole situation altogether because you're too familiar with this pain. if that makes sense. So your body's response was to let me get out of here before they have the time or the moment to sit here and tell me how they feel about me or what it is I did or whatever the case may have been. Let me remove myself quickly before it gets to that point. Or if you're thinking relationship, if every time you've gotten into a relationship, the guy or the girl has left you, and now here you are in your adulthood and you're in a relationship and you see the argument going the same way that previous arguments have gone in your past, but you are now in your late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s, whatever. And this is now a real adult serious relationship compared to your first childhood sweetheart or your high school crush or whoever you was in a relationship with back then. Your first response is to, okay, so what does that mean? You're going to leave me now? When it's like, okay, bro, all I want to do is just have a conversation with you. Yeah, but you just said X, Y, and Z. You were triggered by their response, which reminded you of your past, which now makes you then try to come at them the same way or the way you should have came at the people from the past. So now to avoid this heartbreak or this hard heartbreak that you may feel or you may deal with, you're going to end it. You're going to sabotage it before it can even get to that point where it was never going to begin with. But because of whatever it is that they said, it could be something as simple as, see, this is the problem with you. If anybody has ever told you that in a relationship or even in your family. See, this is why I can't sit here and talk to you. This is why you do this and that. You say, this is why I be saying what I say. Boom, trigger. So now your first instinct is, nah, I gotta go. Or, okay, wait, hold on. Before you even get the rest of it out, I'm going to say what I have to say. That way I get out first before you can even make me feel the way that I felt back then when someone else told me. You guys get what I'm saying? And it also doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be an argument or it has to be some words that were exchanged. You can be triggered by something as simple as the smell of someone's cologne or perfume. It can be a song, like I told you, songs and TV shows would pop up and I'm just like, ooh, this reminds me of him. Damn it. And now I don't want to watch the show no more. Or no, I don't want to hear the song anymore. Or whatever the case is, you instantly are triggered by them and it automatically brings back a memory. It could be the tone of voice of someone. It could be the tone of voice of anybody who you're working with, of a friend, of a family member, anything that can awaken that memory of this person or that situation to make you say, okay, hold on. I'm feeling triggered and I remember this feeling and I don't necessarily want to feel it. But understand that being triggered doesn't mean you failed in your healing. It simply means that you are aware of something that you need to let go of. You're aware that this is holding you back. You're aware that this is keeping you from evolving. Listen, I'm not telling you anything that I am not learning or doing currently with myself. Like I'm telling you, when I tell you I renamed this podcast, The Remedy, because the only way that we're going to evolve and the only way that we're going to understand each other is if we are clear on our perspective when it comes to every and any single thing that you can think of. So just because you're triggered by something, just because something reminds you of a person, a place, a thing, or whatever it is, doesn't mean that you failed at your healing. You're still healing. It's just going to take a little bit more time. Now, the myths that people have said when it comes to healing, and I think like all these myths you've probably heard via, Instagram, TikTok, social media in general, where people say like, stupid shit like, oh, you'll be fully healed once you learn to let this go and you will fully move on when this and that happens. Again, healing isn't about erasing the trigger. It's about changing how you respond to it. You are going to be triggered 9 times out of 10 every other day, maybe every other week, maybe 2, 3, 4 times a year. People can be triggered simply just from holidays. Holidays can trigger people into feeling like, oh my God, I don't want to deal with this. I remember my childhood. Christmas was never great. So now I never want to deal with Christmas now. As an adult, I have a whole family, but I still don't want to celebrate it. Christmas triggers and brings back your old thoughts of how bad it was, or how nothing ever went right, or maybe family drama, or that's when you were proposed to and now you guys are no longer together. The whole point is, how are you going to respond to it? Christmas comes once a year. It's not going anywhere. Sorry. So how are you going to respond to it now that you are an adult? Now that you have children, you may have children. Now that you want to have children. Now that you have a spouse, or now that you want to, let's take relationships out of it. Now you want to throw a Christmas party with you and your girls, or you want to do some things with, you and the guys when it comes to Christmas. Go out for beer or whatever the hell. You want to start your own traditions for Christmas. Let that be your way of responding, rather than, well, no, I don't want to do anything, and you shut down. That's your response to it because you're triggered from your past. But now as an adult, now at, let's say 20, 30 years later now, how are you going to respond from something that was terrible and now turn it into something that can be beautiful? And being fully healed, again, never happens. There's always that 2%, maybe sometimes 1% of yourself that, again, will see something, hear something, smell something, hear a song, whatever, that will bring back either the slightest memory or the biggest memory. And it's going to trigger you in a sense, but it all depends on how you respond to it. So some of you probably are listening and like, okay, so I get the whole trigger thing, I understand the whole healing thing, but how do I recognize the signs that I'm being triggered? So the emotional sign of you being triggered is that you're suddenly angry, or a whole lot of sadness, or your anxiety is through the roof. The physical sign is the heart racing, the tension, the sweating, the sweaty hands. The mental signs, your intrusive thoughts, replaying the event. 9 times out of 10, you're going to go through every single type of sign, the emotional, physical, and the mental sign. When I was triggered, and other times that I have been triggered outside of that situation, but other times that I can recall of me being triggered by my past, I emotionally, my anxiety got to me and I was angry. Or I would get very frustrated and like really flustered. Like even when it came to school, like again, outside of relationships, when it came to school was a trigger for me. I hated, when I say I hated school, and I mostly hated it because when it came down to tests. I was not the best test taker. I hated with a passion, and I still to this day hate taking tests. I now at a grown age, and even in college, I passed the test, but I still hate it because it's like I study. I get to the front of the test and everything goes away. I have no idea what the hell I just read. I've been studying for weeks and now I can't remember shit. I go blank. So whenever there was a test, or whenever I heard the professor, or whenever I knew I was going for another job and I had to take a test, I instantly just got infuriated. And my anxiety and my heart, again with the physical sign, my heart started racing. When I was taking the test, my hands would start to sweat. The trigger was me feeling like I'm going to fail. What was the test? And then me thinking that I was going to fail. But I still kept pushing myself to get through it because I just knew that, well, in order for this to happen, I had to take this test, or I had to move on and I had to do it. The intrusive thoughts. Oh my God, I wonder if I fail, I'm going to have to take this over. Oh my God, I'm going to have to go to summer school. Oh my God, I'm going to have to do this, I'm going to have to do that. replaying past times when I was taking tests and I did fail, or when I did pass. It happens to everyone. It doesn't matter what time, what age, what event. You are going to go through all of the signs. And if you have ever gone through any of those signs, then now you know you were triggered. Just like when, a lot of men are not going to like me for this, but just like when, I guess, if you guys watch Pop the Balloon, I watch only Arlette's show, but if you do watch Pop the Balloon, there was one guy who was on it. I think he was probably like 5'6", 5'7". And all of the girls started popping the balloon. At first it was because of his physical appearance, but then afterwards it became now the way he was talking and how he was communicating his feelings to the woman about their thoughts on him. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't call them out their name. But you can tell physically, because he kept moving back and forth, he kept swaying, he kept rubbing his hands together, that he was being triggered, because his height must have always been a problem when it comes to him dating or finding someone to be with. He hated the fact that was the first thing women came to the conclusion, well, you're too short. But his response to it wasn't a response of, okay, well, I respect your opinion and, it's cool. When Arlette would ask, well, if she's your type, instead of him just saying, no, not really, but still a beautiful woman, and, I hope you do find someone who find someone who makes you happy, and yada, 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 the whole thing. He snapped back really instantly, talking about their outfits, their hair, their makeup, but always just saying all these, just going off and saying all these things. You can tell the man was triggered. But his response shows that he's not healed from it yet. He hasn't let it go because it keeps happening. But like I said, your healing is never going to be, you're never going to be fully healed. You're going to experience these triggers as life goes on. You want to, meaning him, he wanted to be in a relationship. This is something you're going to have to face. So how are you now going to respond to it? Yes, I can understand it's probably sickening. You're probably tired of it. You probably don't want to hear it anymore. But this is your reality. This is what comes with you dating. And especially if you're looking for a particular type of woman, some women may not want to date you because of your height. But his response showed that he still needed some time. So when I was talking to my therapist about this, she thought it was freaking amazing that I was even having or wanting to have this be a topic. But she told me about this pause before the storm technique. And at first I was just like, girl, what are you talking about? She basically said you're creating a gap between feeling and acting. So whenever you feel yourself getting ready to respond in the way that you normally have always responded, think about these three things first. Pause, breathe, and then choose. So when the person is coming at you, let's just say somebody's saying something about you or saying something to you and it has to do with you, right? Or them, but whatever. Let them say what they're saying. And after they're done saying what they're saying, pause. Give yourself time to calm down, especially if you feel your blood pressure about to hit the roof. Pause. If you have to bite your tongue. Not hard, but like bite your tongue. Or bite the inside of your cheek. Or hold your finger. Don't break your finger, but hold your finger. Something to help you in the beginning to keep your pressure down, to get you or to keep you from saying anything that you'll regret later. So the first thing you're going to do is pause. The second thing you're going to do is you're going to breathe. You're going to regulate your body's stress response. So if that means you have to turn away, inhale, exhale, maybe 2-3 times, then do that. Inhale, exhale, breathe 2 or 3 times. And ladies, please, if this is a situation where you are arguing with your man and he's turning away and he's looking up at the ceiling and he's breathing. I've had to learn this myself because that used to piss me the fuck off. As I have gotten older, that is just some men, not all, some men's way of trying to do exactly what it is I am explaining. Pause before they say anything they're going to regret, and then breathe before they release whatever it is they need to say. Do not turn them around. Do not push them. Do not, I'm talking to you. Don't do that. Give them a second. Let them breathe. And then, gentlemen, do not go a whole 48 hours without speaking. Come back within an hour, the most, and speak on your behalf as to what it is you needed to say at that time that you couldn't say because you were just trying to figure out the exact words. But please do not go a whole 24, 48 hours without speaking to your girlfriend or to the girl that you're interested in just because you don't know how to have a conversation. Please don't do that. So then it goes into the third one, which means choose. Pick an action that aligns with your healing. So if you have to, she said it as in a way of, you can first come to the person and say, listen, I heard everything you said. I heard you. I heard your feelings. I acknowledge your feelings. I know what you're feeling. And reiterate it back to them. You feel like I am not giving you enough time. You feel like I'm not giving you enough quality time. You feel like I don't take you out on dates enough. You feel like I'm not hearing you. You feel like I'm not supporting you the same way you're supporting me. Whatever it is they said to you. And again, this doesn't have to just be relationships. This can be friends. It could be anything. And then go and say what it is you need to say. Suggesting the ground tools was also something that she said. Doing the 5-4-3-2-1 method. Positive affirmations, short walks, or journaling. I know most men don't journal, but guys, I do think you guys should try thinking about it. It's just like writing down, for those of you who like to rap, it's just like, it's the same thing. Just write it down. Something else that you can also do when you're by yourself after you've gone through this triggering moment, ask yourself, or even in your phone, whatever, what is this moment showing me about where I still am hurting? Where in my life am I still hurt? Or how did this situation affect me in this way? And where is it affecting me? One of my friends, he wants to be in a relationship so badly. He does. He has a big heart. But I've told him multiple times that your past relationships are affecting your current ones because you haven't gotten over it. And he told me, yeah, he knows, he's aware, he sees it. I said, no, bro, you really don't see it. You are going to forever remain single because every time he got into an argument with the girl he was talking to, a girlfriend, whoever, since his first love, his first everything, he walks away. He just dips. I can't deal with this. You can't have a conversation. If she's trying to tell you what it is that's bothering her, why are you walking away? If it's bothering her, why is your first instinct to say, well, nah, fuck this, I don't want to deal with it? Because, again, back to my first example that I said, you're triggered. Back then, you were the person who tried to make it work. You were the person that sat there and said, okay, let's try to figure this out. She ended up saying, no, fuck that. I don't want to figure it out. I'm done. I'm moving on. X, Y, and Z. I did this. I did that. And I don't care. But you kept holding on like, no, let's figure this out. Like, I don't want us to break up. I want us to stay together. Yada, yada, yada. I want us to do everything that we said we were going to do. Now, at this grown age, as you're moving and navigating into your adult relationships with females who you want to be in a relationship with, you can't seem to do that because you're holding on to what it is she did, and to prevent what she did happen to you again, you are going to cut all the women off when they're telling you that something is bothering them. Because I don't want to deal with this. I dealt with this before. I'm not trying to hear nobody arguing. If you think getting into a relationship you're not going to argue, you might as well just stay single. You might as well get yourself a teddy bear, a very big giant teddy bear, or a blow up doll, whatever suits you, and just do life with them. Because I don't understand where and why so many people feel like relationships require no arguing. That's not going to happen. If you guys want to know how a 40-year relationship lasts, go back and listen to my episode with my parents. 40 years of marriage. They're going to tell you arguments are going to happen. So let's say you're doing all of this, right? Let's say you're figuring out your triggers, you're working through them, you're doing the whole nine. But now how do you communicate this to your loved ones, to your friends, to, it could even be your coworkers or your boss or whoever? How do you now explain to them what's happening without blame? You have to set boundaries during these moments when it just feels completely overwhelming. You have to communicate and use, like, I feel like you're not understanding, and I feel like this and that and the third, and I feel like sometimes when I say X, Y, and Z, tell them what the problem is. Nothing can get fixed if you stay quiet. I always say, like, relationships, friendships, this is not the game of charades. I cannot fix what the problem is if you don't tell me what the issue is. And that goes for every relationship. How do you expect to fix something, to heal from something, if you don't bring it to the surface? A lot of people choose not to bring things to the surface because it brings up too much pain. I understand that, but the pain is never going to go away. And you can drink it out. You can sex it out. You can have multiple women. You can have multiple men. You can date after date after date after date, relationship after relationship after relationship after relationship. You can do it all. And again, I'm not judging. Please don't ever think I am judging. But you can do all of this to mask how the pain of whatever happened to you back then really affected you. But to, at some point, regardless of whatever age it is, because healing doesn't happen by 29. Healing doesn't happen by 39. Healing doesn't happen at 49. No, it happens when it's supposed to freaking happen. I hate it when people put timestamps on things and when you're supposed to mature and when you're supposed to grow and when you're supposed to... No, when I say at this big age, I mean you're no longer that young teenager who you were back then. Teenagers, we get a pass back then. We were dumb, young, and stupid. Even in your early 20s, you're dumb, young, and stupid. Now that as you're getting older, you're becoming more aware of what it is that you're doing. So even if you become aware of what you're doing in your 40s, okay, good, boom, you now know. Okay, you became aware of it in your 50s. Cool. The whole point is you don't want to get to 70. You don't want to get to 80 and say, shit, I wasted all of these years holding on to pain that I could have just easily spoke about, and I would have been perfectly fine. I would have been okay had I had just opened up and had I had just communicated and said something to someone. And before we end this, also make sure you celebrate the progress. Celebrate your wins. If you encountered a person or encountered a thing or a song or whatever it may have been, again, you've come across another trigger, or you've come across that exact trigger that's been bothering you, and you didn't respond the way you normally would respond, congratulate yourself, because you handled it in the way that you told yourself, I'm going to get to this point where when this happens again, when I encounter this person again, or when I encounter this feeling again, I don't feel like this. And congratulate yourself. Tell yourself, you know what, you did a good job. I handled that very well. Because the old me would have handled it like this. But the mature me, the newer version of me, the me that's improving, handled it this way. And be proud of that, because you could have easily set yourself back 10 steps, 10 years back, but you chose not to. So please, guys, remember, being triggered doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're human. And every time you choose healing over reaction, you win. Every time you choose the newer version of yourself, you win. Because if you continue to put yourself back into these situations that are going to cause you to set yourself back 10 steps, you're never going to move forward. Take Christopher Maurice Brown. He was sitting next to Quavo when him and Quavo were having beef. I guess they still have beef. I don't know. But they sat them right next to each other at a fashion show. The old Chris probably would have tore that runway up with Quavo. And Quavo the same. I'm not just saying this just on Chris. Quavo probably the same. Because they both been talking shit to each other and mouthing off on IG. And maybe through phone calls or whatever else. But the fact that these two men who had an issue with each other was able to sit next to each other at a event and just be there at the show without there being any issues, that is them healing through whatever trigger has caused them to have that problem. It does not have to be a major trigger. Understand that. It could be something small. It could be something really recent. But how you respond to it is going to show how much growth you really have put in. So remember, guys, you're going to be triggered. It's going to happen. You're going to have these moments. But it's okay. You're going to be okay. Just choose healing over reaction. Just choose the newer version of you over the older version of you. I love you guys for listening. I hope you guys continue to share, like, and comment. I hope you guys have an amazing week. Whatever happens today, leave that shit into today. Do not worry about it tomorrow. Later, guys.
Soundstripe.